Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today. I'm Samuel Stanley, Jr., president of Stony Brook University. Before I begin my remarks, I did want to acknowledge one person in the audience who's a great friend to Stony Brook University and a great friend to the State University of New York, and that's the Chairman Emeritus of the Stony Brook Foundation, Dr. Jim Simons. Please join me in acknowledging him. So it is an honor to welcome Governor Andrew Cuomo to Stony Brook today. Over the past 2 years, the governor has focused on rebuilding the economies of Long Island and the state of New York. And under his leadership, it is obvious that much progress has been made. Today, the governor will talk about his vision and plan for this year and how to build upon that progress and continue to improve our economy. It is fitting that the governor chose to visit Stony Brook to talk about this plan. Education is the engine in growing an economy, and the SUNY system and our universities play a major role in the state. We are educating and preparing our students to join the workforce. We're investing in research to come up with the latest ideas to make New York a leader in technology and innovation and to attract businesses to come to our state. For example, here at Stony Brook University, we are home to 3 incubators focusing in the areas of high technology, the development of new aquaculture, agriculture, and environmental technologies, and software development and manufacturing. These incubators are driving innovation and exploring new technologies, encouraging young people to go into business and helping them to develop new products and turn startup companies into commercial successes. Governor Cuomo recognizes these public-private partnerships are critical in a 21st century economy. He is making smart investments, leveraging academia to attract businesses to New York and create jobs, and I applaud him and thank him for his leadership. Now I'm pleased to introduce our County Executive, Steve Bellone.
Good afternoon. Thank you, President Stanley, and thank you for the great work that you are doing here at Stony Brook University. It is an honor for me to welcome, once again, Governor Cuomo to Suffolk County. We have a number of distinguished guests with us here today that I would like to acknowledge. The co-chair of the Long Island Regional Economic Development Council, Kevin Law. The supervisor of the town of Babylon, Rich Schaefer. The supervisor of the town of Riverhead, Sean Walter. And my colleagues on the Suffolk County Legislature, Legislator Sarah Anker and Legislator Kara Hahn. And thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. I first want to take a moment to thank the governor for his steadfast leadership and support during and in the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy. This was, without question, the worst natural disaster that we have faced in this county. And it meant all the difference in the world to know that we had the governor with us every step of the way. From the time that we were beginning preparations for the storm all the way till today, when he is now taking much needed steps to prepare New York to deal with any natural disaster. But that response to Superstorm Sandy is just the latest example of how this governor has taken a capital that was once synonymous with dysfunction and turned it into a model for state capitals around the nation. Quite frankly, counties and local governments have never had a partner in Albany like Governor Cuomo. He is helping to make Suffolk County work. From the regional economic development councils that have fostered real, sustainable economic growth here, where the Long Island Council won hundreds of millions of dollars for growth here in this county, and for signing into law responsible and comprehensive gun safety legislation that will make our state the safest state in the nation. For all that and so much more, the governor has shown that he has transformed Albany into an effective and efficient model for government. Furthermore, this administration has done more for localities in the past 2 years than past administrations have done in decades, by helping counties cover the costs of Medicaid and implementing the Tier 6 pension plan that will take the burden off of counties like Suffolk and throughout the state, and so many other initiatives. The governor has proven that the cities, towns, and villages of this state have a friend and an advocate in Albany. And now it is my honor and privilege to introduce to you one of your own, someone who is sure to make their mark in Suffolk County and in New York, Danielle Green.
Thank you, County Executive Ballone. And on behalf of my fellow students, welcome Governor Cuomo to Stony Brook University. It is an honor to have you here, and I thank you for inviting me to speak today. My name is Danielle Green, and I am a PhD student in the Department of Biomedical Engineering. Here at Stony Brook, I have been working with Dr. Clint Rubin's lab researching the effects of low-intensity vibrations on bone growth and bone regeneration. People with poor bone quality often have an increased risk of fracture. For example, persons who are osteoporotic, obese, or exposed to radiation. This, of course, includes cancer patients. Our studies with low-intensity vibrations have shown to improve the quality of bones. My research has contributed to the development of a vibrating plate which people stand on for 10 minutes a day to strengthen their bones. This technology has fewer side effects and risks compared to the current drugs used to treat weak bones. Currently, plans are in the work to bring our vibration plate to market to be sold and distributed by the company Meridyne, whose technology was licensed right here at Stony Brook University. We also plan to continue researching other uses and applications for this device here on campus. My goal is to contribute to a new business and product here in New York State. This innovation is an example of only one of the many products developed here at Stony Brook University. The ultimate goal of these products is to improve the quality of life for not only New Yorkers, but for everyone. Governor Cuomo's technology transfer proposal would nurture this type of innovation. It will achieve the commercialization of good ideas and the creation of new businesses. It connects academics, venture capitalists, business leaders, and other professionals and entrepreneurs to facilitate and grow the commercialization process and keep businesses here in New York. Similar to Stony Brook's incubators, the governor has proposed hotspots that will provide startups across the state with incubators that support growth tax-free zones. The governor wants entrepreneurs to create in New York, expand in New York, and stay in New York. I've lived in Ithaca, Rochester, and now here on Long Island, and I would very much like to stay in the state of New York, because this is a place where young people like me and businesses can grow and thrive. Governor Cuomo's plan to invest in new ideas and businesses is an investment into our future. He knows that too many entrepreneurs develop new business ideas and products and then leave the state, bringing those ideas and products with them to these other places, and this ultimately hurts New York State. I would like to stay here because I know that the governor is willing to invest in my ideas and in my future and in the future of New York. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you the governor of the great state of New York, Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, it is a pleasure to be here today. And first, let me thank Danielle Green. Low intensity vibration. Why didn't I think of that? Because I didn't go to Stony Brook. That's why I didn't think of that. Thank you very much for those kind remarks. President Stanley, pleasure to be with you. Thank you for your leadership. County Executive Ballone, I almost didn't recognize County Executive Ballone when I saw him because he was in a suit. When I've been seeing the county executive, it's in the middle of a snowstorm, it's in the middle of a hurricane, he's wearing dungarees, and we're wet, and we're in the middle of nowhere. So it's a pleasure to be with the county executive. I'll tell you this, he is doing an outstanding job. You know, you watch him. And you've been reading about him in the papers and been watching what he's been doing with the county government and the finances, et cetera, and he's been doing a great job. But I've been out there with him at 3 o'clock in the morning in the middle of floods and in the middle of snowstorms, and you really get a sense of a person and a person's character in those situations because we've been gone through some tough experiences together. And I can tell you this is a really quality individual who's in the business for the right reasons and has a courage and a confidence about him that is inspiring. So, pleasure to be with you, County Executive. Supervisor Rich Schaefer, pleasure to be with you. The other supervisors who are here, legislators who are here, thank you very much. The local officials who are here. It's truly my pleasure to be here. Stony Brook is such a great gem for the SUNY system. People talk about Stony Brook all across the state. In so many ways, the challenges that the state faces are being addressed here at Stony Brook, and the models that we need to follow are here at Stony Brook. The president introduced him, but Jim Simons, who is a great booster of Stony Brook, had the misfortune of meeting me at Stony Brook about a year ago. And I got to meet Jim and got a sense of all his capacity and intelligence, and he's been a great asset now to the state, and he's helping us out in a number of ways. Jim Simons, pleasure to be with you. And what today is about is at the beginning of the year, a government official gives his or her vision for that jurisdiction for the year. At the beginning of the year, the president will do the State of the Union address. Governors do the State of the State address. County executive will do the State of the county, et cetera. And they are traditionally presented to the legislative body. So President Obama presents it to a joint session of Congress, and I presented it in Albany to the Assembly and the Senate in a joint session. And that's the way it's normally done. I changed it 2 years ago when I became governor because I don't work for the legislature. And I don't work for the politicians in Albany. I work for you. So I want to present the plan to you. I want to get your feedback. I want to get your feedback. What do you think makes sense? What doesn't make sense? And then I want you involved in the process. I know it's a cliche that democracy works when people get involved. My father used to say the squeaky wheel gets the grease. The people who get involved get the attention. That is how the political system works. So if you don't get involved, then you're ceding your voice and your role to someone else. And we need more good people involved in government, especially during these days. So this is going to be the presentation of what I see for the state. We call it New York Rising, which is New Yorkers had serious issues of late. And we're going to build back from those issues, and I think we're going to rise to a new level. Past few months, we've seen a number of traumatic events, some very good, some very bad. And I think we begin by taking our bearings. 2 years ago, I became governor. I said at that time the state had to go forward on a fundamentally different course, a fundamentally different track, because we had real issues and we had real problems. The state government had been suffering for years and years and years. And parts of this state were seriously in decline. And that it was time for the state to come up with a strike back, a comeback plan that really changed the basic trajectory. And the plan was about attracting good jobs, because that's what it's about, for an individual to have a career, a municipality to have a tax base, a world-class education system, because that fits in hand in glove with finding the jobs and getting the jobs, a state of fiscal integrity and discipline, and fourth, New York is the progressive capital of the nation, because New York is not just another state. New York is a special state with a great history and a great legacy, and a legacy of firsts, and a legacy of showing the way, and other states look to us for guidance. And we need to reclaim that progressive mantle. I think over the past 2 years, it's fair to say we're on our way. A great Governor Al Smith used to say, look at the record, look at the facts. I think if you look at the past 2 years, you see we've changed the culture of the state government and the state bureaucracy. It's not obstructionist. We replaced it with entrepreneurial government. It's not an oxymoron. You can have a government that thinks entrepreneurially. You can be creative. You can be lean. You can be mean. You can get to yes rather than focus on no. Gone is the political gridlock. You know, too many governments are mired in gridlock where the politicians are playing politics rather than doing the people's business. You see it in Washington now. Democrats blame Republicans. Republicans blame Democrats. People point fingers. And we said 2 years ago, and we've been true to our word, look, we're Democrats and we're Republicans, but we're New Yorkers first. And let's put New Yorkers first for a change and stop the politics. And over the past 2 years, you've seen a state government that is actually working and performing for the people, and we've made great progress, but we certainly have much, much more to do. The national economy isn't as strong as it should be, and therefore the state economy isn't as strong as it should be. That progressive mantle and progressive leadership is an ongoing responsibility requiring constant assessment. We are not educating all of our children to the fullest. Some children are getting a world-class education, and some children are being left behind, and that's the truth, and we're better than that. And Mother Nature has not been kind to us and has given us our work to do. So the beginning of the agenda is to focus on our strength. The 1-2 punch for New York is jobs and education, and they're related. Economic development is the engine that pulls the train. The best thing we can do is provide great career paths for young people. The best thing I can do for the county or for a town is to spur that economy so businesses are there, businesses are thriving, and they're paying taxes. We started a New York Open for Business campaign 2 years ago to change the stereotype. You know, New York had a terrible reputation for business. They really believed we were anti-business, we're high tax, we're difficult to do business. And if that's your reputation, businesses will leave. They'll leave Long Island. People will leave. They're more mobile than ever before. It's true. And we were seeing the exodus. Change your ways. And we have changed our ways, and we're continuing to change our ways. The first is, last year we lowered taxes to the lowest level for the middle class in 60 years. You have to change that reputation for being the tax capital. I want to balance our budget this year, which has a $1 billion deficit, but close that $1 billion deficit by finding efficiencies in the state government and no new taxes, period. Because that's how people start to realize that it's a different state. I want to pass a no new tax budget, and I want to pass a no new tax budget on time. Why? Because for many years, this state had a late budget. Theoretically, the budget's supposed to be done April 1. And you would get up near April 1, and there'd be all this anticipation, will the state government get it done? And then April 1, it was late, and then it was 1 week late, and then 2 weeks late. And this happened every year. It was like an annual event of chaos. And it just added to this sense that the government doesn't work and the government doesn't care and the politicians live by a different set of rules and everybody else has to live their life one way, and then the state government can't even get its act together to pass a budget on time. Past 2 years, we've passed the budget on time. This is the third year. This is the third year we want to pass the budget on time again for 3 years in a row, which doesn't sound like much, but actually will not have happened since 1984. Little piece of trivia. Who was the governor in 1984? Not that little a piece. Mario Cuomo, governor in 1984. He had passed two budgets on time. He came in 1983, so he passed 83 and 84 on time. The last year of Governor Hugh Carey had been on time. That made the 3 in a row, which is the record we're trying to break. However, my father was only 2 of those 3 budgets. I don't want you to think I'm competitive with my old man, but this will beat my father, who set the record in 1984. We're also working on developing regional economies. Why? Because there is no one New York State economy. There are regional economies. And if the state is to grow the economies, you must grow those regional economies. And it must be organic. Long Island is an economy unto itself. And this economy will do well or not do well, and it's going to have nothing to do with the Buffalo economy or the Adirondacks economy or the Catskills. The state government sets the table, the basic template, but you grow those economies regionally or you don't grow them. And you organize them, and that's what the Regional Economic Development Councils are all about. That's what Kevin Law's good work is all about, bringing that region together, business leaders, academics, entrepreneurs, and finding out how to grow that regional economy, and it's going very well. This year we want to take it to the next level, which is focusing on the key economic challenge, which is the tech transfer challenge. And Stony Brook has some very positive examples in this regard. When you look at the economies that are doing well in this country, or around the world for that matter, the basic common denominator of progress are these new high-tech ideas that are basically coming out of academic institutions of higher learning. And it's the next cell phone, the next chip, it's the next circuit board, but this great high-tech, brilliant idea coming out of an academic institution that then becomes commercialized. And they call that the tech transfer, the transfer of the technology to the commercial sphere. New York, we have the schools producing the ideas. We have the young people, we have the brilliance, but they don't become businesses in New York. They leave New York to become businesses. They'll go to California, they'll go to Massachusetts, they go to Texas. Venture capital firms invest in them and bring them elsewhere. Why? Because we're still suffering from that hangover effect of New York being anti-business. And that is the challenge that we have to change. We're doing the R&D, we're coming up with the ideas, we have the brilliance, but we lose them when they become businesses. That's what we have to reverse. And one of our approaches is going to be the Innovation Hotspots program that we want to put on top of the Regional Economic Development Councils. What the Innovation Hotspot says is this: we need to form partnerships between institutions of higher learning and the private sector, take those young entrepreneurial ideas, those brilliant ideas that are just being born, and put them in a business incubator that we will pay for, provide them with the support services. We'll pay for the lawyers and the accountants to help grow that business, germinate that business. The incubator will be a tax-free zone. The business will pay no taxes. So New York has to be the best location for that business because you're paying no taxes. New York State will invest through a venture capital firm in that business growth, okay? And we only want one thing in return. There's only one caveat, which is that business stays and grows in the state of New York and hires people in the state of New York. That's what hotspots are all about. And we take those great, new, brilliant ideas, Stony Brook churns them out daily, and commercialize them, and that's what the hotspot concept is all about. We also have to reduce cost of doing business on an ongoing basis. Every businessman will complain about the cost of unemployment insurance and workers' comp in the state of New York. We have a reform plan for both of them that will reduce the cost by about $1.3 billion in this budget. I want to get that passed, so we say to businesses who are in this state, we heard you, we're reducing the cost of business on an ongoing basis, $1.3 billion, they will feel that, and that's significant. The other economic challenge, we have to have a ready workforce. When you look at a lot of our job training programs that are done in a lot of the private institutions or in the community colleges, they are designed from a different time and place. We have these generic one-size-fits-all job training programs that frankly just don't work anymore. We have to flip the model and change the model where we identify the job first and the skills for that job, and we train for that job. The good news is we have an opportunity because jobs are coming back from overseas. Remember when the corporations 10 years ago discovered cheap labor in Asia, et cetera, and the whole move was where they're going offshore with their jobs. They're moving their jobs for the cheap labor because our labor is too expensive. You know what the corporations found out when they got there? You get what you pay for. Cheap labor, you get cheap labor. They got back on the boat, they're coming back. Why? Because they need the skills, and we have the skilled workforce here. That's our opportunity. 210,000 unfilled jobs in the state of New York today because they can't find a worker with the skill set for that job. And these are highly technical jobs, each and every one of them. And you have to be trained for that job, but that's also the silver lining. And that's our opportunity. We're going to change our work training program through the community colleges to a next generation New York job linkage. Find the job, find the employer, identify the skill set, the curriculum fits that skill set. That's how we're going to go forward, and I think it's going to make a major difference. Once you have a person in a job, the job has to pay a wage that allows them to live. State sets the minimum wage law. Minimum wage now is $14,600 per year. Question is, can you live on that? The average cost of gasoline is about $1,200. Cost of electricity is about $1,300. Auto insurance is about $1,400, unless you have a record like mine, and then you pay more. Cost of groceries about $6,500. Cost of child care $10,750, and cost of housing $15,000. The minimum wage, the numbers just don't add up. We're outpaced by all the states that are in our region. We propose raising the minimum wage to $8.75 an hour. It's the right thing to do. It's the fair thing to do. It's long overdue, in my opinion, and it's time to change it now. In terms of education, we have two words, more and better. First, we just have to educate our children more. This is not a state issue. It's really a national issue. The other countries are bypassing us in terms of education. We say all day long our children are going to compete globally, but the children globally are getting a better education. And there's not a lot of mystery. The other countries educate their children more. They spend more time in the classroom. Our calendar is still based on a time when we had an agrarian society, and that's why the children have off during the summer so they can help in the fields. This has to be the direction that we move if we're going to compete with the other countries who are now just spending and investing more in their children. Now, how do you have more learning time? Well, you could have a longer day, or you could have a longer year, or you could have a combination of both. I think this is right. This is also a dramatic change. Why? Because we organize our society around the school day and the school year. 9 to 3 is when children are in school, and we organize that way. We plan our summer vacations, and that's when we go away, et cetera. So to now change the school calendar is a big deal. I get it. And what I want to do is this. There are 700 school districts in the state. And I want to leave it to the 700 school districts. It's their choice. I believe this is the way to go. I believe we have to start to make the transition. I understand that change is hard, and I understand that this is a big one, but I think we should move in this direction. I'll leave it to the local school districts as to how they want to do it, longer day, longer year, combination of both, or if they want to do it. But I want them to hear me, and I want to incentivize it, so if they do it, the state will pay 100% of the additional cost of the education. Early education is the same thing. Every study says the earlier you get that child into school, the better they do, the better their academic results, the better their life results, frankly. We need pre-K for all our children. It should be full-day pre-K. We should do it statewide, and we should start today. We also have to come to terms. We've had a long debate on schools in poorer communities versus schools in richer communities. And we've been talking about a school in a poor community and a school in a rich community like they do the same thing, like they're apples and apples. They are not apples and apples. The school in the poor community is doing a totally different job than the school in the rich community. The school in the poor community, you don't have two-parent families, you don't have the same economic resources, you don't have the community support services. That's not just a teacher. That's teacher plus after-school counselor, plus mentor, plus health nutritionist. Let's recognize it for what it is. These schools have more challenges than the richer schools. Let's put the services in those poorer schools, fund it accordingly, understand that it's doing more than just educating. They're a community school, they're an educator, they're also the place of social services and the wraparound services so that child gets the real start that they need. And let's end the argument and fund it for what it should be and give kids a real break. We've invested mightily in higher education. Our SUNY system is a gem. We've invested here in Stony Brook and through a competition in universities across the state. It works. It has created all sorts of creativity among the schools themselves and the universities. The competition among the universities, frankly, has been good, and I believe has brought up their game. I want to continue the investment in SUNYs to award their creativity with another $200 million this year. While education and economic development are really the main priorities for the state, as I said early on, there's more to New York than that. New York is the equality capital of the nation. It's led the way for other states in terms of progressive policies for a long, long time. 2 years ago, we passed a law called the Marriage Equality Law that allowed same-sex marriage in the state of New York. And I learned something when we passed this law. First, it provided marriage equality for millions of New Yorkers and their families who were discriminated against only because they were gay, and that's why the law wouldn't allow them to marry legally. We righted that situation. But when we passed that law, states all across the nation noticed what we did, and it caused them to reflect on their own situation and their own behavior. And after we passed marriage equality, a number of other states started to pass marriage equality, and then the federal government started to talk about marriage equality. This state really does have a very positive role to play in terms of progressive policy development. And progressive policy is an ongoing exercise. The pursuit of justice is the pursuit, right? It's the destination. It's the journey more than the destination. And it requires us to constantly evaluate, is there still discrimination among us? Are there inequities? Are there obstacles? And is there more for us to do as a society to end discrimination? And let's be honest and really have a frank conversation about where discrimination still exists in our society. Maybe it's subtle, but that can make it even more insidious. And I submit that there's more to do in society.
These two babies were born in the same hospital on the same day at the same time. They will both go home to loving families and good homes. They will attend good schools, get the same grades, and earn the same degree. They will enter the same profession, but their lives will be much different. One will earn, on average, $11,000 less per year and $500,000 less over a lifetime. The other is 32 times more likely to become a CEO or serve on a corporate board. One is 5 times more likely to be sexually harassed or become a victim of domestic violence, and more than twice as likely to be a victim of housing or lending discrimination. One is twice as likely to become a single parent living in poverty, and twice as likely to live out old age in poverty. Why? Because one is a girl. It's not right. It's not fair. It's time for a Women's Equality Act.
It is true. It is true that there is still discrimination. There's discrimination against women. It's a man's world. There's almost a cultural bias towards it, and we should address it. New York was the home of the women's equality movement, Seneca Falls. It all started there. We want to pass a Women's Equality Act, which is a comprehensive equality act. This year, it has 10 points. First point is shatter the glass ceiling. Women still make 77 cents to a man's dollar, and we should have a real equal pay law in this state, which we don't now. Zero tolerance for sexual harassment, strengthen employment and lending discrimination, human trafficking laws, which is a much worse problem than we acknowledge as a society, ending family status discrimination, discrimination by private landlords, pregnancy discrimination, protect victims of domestic violence with a strengthening of the order protections and enforcing order of protections, and protecting a woman's right to choose. That is, we also passed on the second day of the legislative session, I'm proud to say, a gun safety law that addresses the issue of gun violence. It's reasonable, it's balanced, it's measured, it respects hunters and sportsmen, but it ends the unnecessary risk of high-capacity assault weapons and magazines. It keeps guns from criminals and mentally ill. It bans the assault weapons. It closes the private sector loophole, tougher penalties for illegal guns, what's called the Webster provision, which is mandatory life sentence for killing of a first responder. This was the Webster case, which is right outside of Rochester. Christmas Eve, this past Christmas Eve, person lights a car on fire in front of their house, goes into the attic window with an assault weapon. When the firefighters show up to put out the fire, Christmas Eve morning, he kills them. And that's the Webster provision. We have the most comprehensive gun law in the nation. This law is a law that is long overdue. These recent tragedies were horrendous, but they were only recent tragedies. There have been decades of tragedies, and this nation has been paralyzed to do anything reasonable or sensible about guns because of the politics of the matter and the power of the NRA and some lobbying organizations, and how I believe it's frustrated the political system. I've been involved in passing a lot of laws. I am so proud of the New York State Legislature for passing this law because it was a courageous law to pass. It was hard to pass. Don't kid yourself. This is a controversial law, and politicians like to remain in elected office, and this was a hard law to pass, but We're good at saying when government does the wrong thing. In this case, they really did the right thing, and I applaud them for it. And last but not least, responding to the crisis, Sandy, was October 29th. We have to begin by learning from what happened. Climate change is real, in my opinion. It's inarguable that the sea is warmer and there's a changing weather pattern. I don't accept that these are isolated, episodic situations. We now have a 100-year flood every 3 years. We're kidding ourselves if we think it's not going to happen again. It is. And let's act smart, and let's not just rebuild what was. Let's rebuild smarter than before and understand that this is probably going to happen again. I would rather spend more money and build back a home the right way with the right design and the right technology than build it back in 2 years and in 4 years and in 6 years. We're going to have a very aggressive mitigation plan that we're working on in partnership with the county, where the state and the county will subsidize mitigation aspects and mitigation redesigns for people who want to rebuild their homes, but rebuild their homes smarter. We'll also be funding a buyout program, because there are some parcels that Mother Nature owns. Now, she may only come to visit every 2 years or 3 years, but when she comes to visit, she reclaims her spot. And there may be homeowners who say, I've done this one too many times, I've rebuilt my home 3 times in 6 years, I'm done. We want to offer a community and a homeowner that option. We will buy out the home at the pre-hurricane price, 100 cents on the dollar, because we want to give that homeowner options. We also want to empower local communities to rebuild their community. You know, nobody knows better than Lindenhurst how to rebuild than Lindenhurst. So the county and the state will partner in providing grants to the individual communities for their own reconstruction and redesign plans, and we'll be doing that all along the affected area, communities that were impacted, and giving them funds to do it. We have a very comprehensive list of projects that we're going to be going forward on Long Island, from rebuilding infrastructure and roads, rebuilding homes, government facilities, all across the board. One of the areas we're going to focus on right away are our beaches, which were truly devastated. We reached an agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers to dredge and replace 3 to 4 million cubic yards of sand to replace the sand that was lost on the Long Island beaches. That's enough sand to fill the Empire State Building 3 times over, so that is a lot of sand. We're going to continue to work through the summer, but our goal is to have every state park on Long Island and the rest of the state open in time for Memorial Day, which is an ambitious goal, but that's what we're striving for. We want to have the Jones Beach Boardwalk redone, $20 million, and again have that done by Memorial Day. We also have to harden our infrastructure, our airports, our fuel delivery system. All that chaos about the fuel was caused by a 1.5 day delay, period. We lost delivery for 1.5 days. It created weeks of chaos. There is no backup system. There's no reserve system. The fuel system runs on electric pumps. When the electricity goes out, they can't pump the fuel. It's amazing how unsophisticated the system is and how the collapse of one system just leads to another. We have to fix that in light of this. We have to harden our utility system. It can't be every time the wind blows, a tree falls, a line comes down, and people are in the dark for 2 weeks. I mean, it can't happen anymore. And we need to redesign our power system and do it this time. I want to have the best emergency response network on the planet, because this is a matter of life and death. When either government works or government doesn't work. The good news is we were successful in getting $30 billion in aid from the federal government to rebuild. $30 billion is a lot of money. If the state had to find this money and the county had to find this money, it would have been really, really difficult and set us back. So I want to applaud the Congress. Congressman Peter King was very helpful in making this happen. President Barack Obama signed the bill, and I want to thank him. So that's the good news. But the best news is that we are New Yorkers. And I think the county executive will tell you that there was a silver lining to this storm. Because New Yorkers were a little bit like a family. You know, in a family, you can always find reasons to fight among yourselves, and you can find little problems, and you always have a little tension. But then something real happens. And when something real happens, God forbid somebody gets sick, God forbid somebody dies, that family comes together and all the little things go away. That's what happened during Hurricane Sandy. All the little things went away. And you saw New Yorkers come together to help one another in an unprecedented way. I mean, it was amazing. People came from all over the state. People came from all over the country just to be there to help. And who brought food and who brought tools and who just showed up and said, tell me where to go. I'm just a pair of hands and I want to help. And it was such a beautiful show of humanity and citizenship and volunteerism, and all the little things went away, and all the differences went away, and we weren't black, and we weren't white, and we weren't upstate, and we weren't downstate, and we weren't gay, and we weren't straight. We were just New Yorkers. We were just one. And there is such power in that unity. And there is such strength in that unity. And we remember that. We remember that what binds us is more important than what divides us, that the commonalities are stronger than the differences, and that we're all pulling in the same direction. We remember that there is nothing this state can't do, because we have every asset imaginable. We have the best people, the best institutions, the best schools, the best hospitals. We have the best of everything. And if we are all pointed in one direction, you're going to see us build back from Sandy, not just to what was. We're going to build back to a level that never has been before. And that's what New York Rising is all about. And that's our goal for this year, that we will reach together. Thank you, and God bless you.